Hi guys, David here for the BartenderHQ.com podcast, and it's kind of a there's no podcast kind of podcast. Not that I'm not recording anything for you, I've just had a really crazy weekend. There's an awful lot of stuff going on with my personal life, and the fact that I've kind of had to step in and run the nightclub this weekend at really short notice. So I just wanted to let you know that I don't have a full podcast for you. I just wanted to mention a couple of things though that I'd spotted online that I thought were really interesting.
Welcome to the BartenderHQ.com podcast. Find us on Facebook and Twitter at BartenderHQ. Here's your host, David Eden-Sangwell.
Okay, so first of all, last week's podcast about the rise of Craft Flair Bartending went absolutely crazy. Everyone loved it. It was really cool. Thank you ever so much if you shared it. If you've not checked that one out yet, stop watching this right now. That one's far better. Go and have a look at that. And it's incredible how much that kind of resonated with people. I've seen that people have actually already started filming videos, like if you check out Ryan Clayton, who's over at the European Bar School in Manchester. He's shot a little video where he's been practicing there and at his bar, the Pig and Pie, I believe it's called. It could be the wrong way around. Of one of these sort of craft flair moves that he's come up with, and I think that's really interesting. Because I don't know if anyone used the term craft flair bartending until last week to refer to this kind of stuff that Yevgeny has been showcasing so well on Facebook. So it's really interesting that people are already posting using that exact term. So thank you to all of you for your shares. If you haven't watched it, as I say, go and check it out and share it. I think you might find that other bartenders that you know will find this really interesting as well. Okay, and one quick thing that came through to me on my phone this morning, just in my emails, email from Nuzzle, who are a sort of news aggregator, and they seem to actually have a pretty good idea of what I will be interested in. Now, Absolut are releasing a bourbon flavoured vodka. Now, that is basically, you know, it's produced in a similar way. So they take their vodka, they age it in barrels for 6 months, so it is a little bit shorter than for a bourbon, which has to be aged for a couple of years. But essentially, if you're aging vodka, it stops being vodka really anymore. I would have thought it's going to pick up the same kind of flavours. It's not flavoured vodka in that it's had a flavouring added to it. It's simply that this vodka's been aged in the oak barrels, picks up some of it. It's called Absolut Oak. It's going to be available very soon, and I'm quite interested to try it out. They're suggesting using it in Moscow Mules, and there was another suggestion on the email that I saw as well. Can't quite remember at the moment, but I just thought that was really interesting that that vodka is trying to get in on the bourbon market. What do you think? Is there any point in a bourbon flavoured vodka, or should we just stick with drinking bourbon if we want bourbon flavour and vodka if we want vodka flavour? Let me know in the comments. Now, as I say, it's been a really crazy weekend. It's been quite busy at the club, had a couple of sickies, and one of the things that I will definitely be talking about is how much it can make your life hell when members of your team don't show up. We have a very small team at the nightclub. I think there were 6 members of staff plus myself, so that's 1 on the door, 1 on each of the 3 tills, and then we should have had a glass collector and 1 extra bartender to float. Unfortunately, we had one of the strong bartenders called in sick. Our glass collector called in sick. So I had 3 bartenders and 1 on the entry, on the cloakroom and covers, that kind of thing. It really does make a big difference when you've got a small team, when you have 1 or even worse 2 sickies. It's a bit of a pain, and it does kind of make it a lot harder for the rest of the team. Now, strangely enough, this week though, we had a really busy night still. Still took the money we needed to take, so that was all good. Not going to get in trouble with the big boss. But it does make your life so much harder when all of a sudden you're having to fill in the job of 2 or 3 people. I'm not 100% used to the systems at the club yet, so it takes me a little bit longer on the cash ups and that sort of thing. But it is very interesting that it can still be done. So bartenders, Don't let your teammates down. It really, really screws with everyone's night and makes things really tricky. So I'm going to be heading into the club today. We've got Flair Club this evening at the at Reflex in Arcadian. We are going to be having a whole bunch of extra people come down this evening, so I know a lot of the crew from Reflex are actually going to come down tonight, which is really cool. If you happen to be in the Birmingham area, please come and join us, come and throw some bottles around. But in the meantime, I've got to get down there, clean up. It was an absolute nightmare last night. The guys that were in absolutely worked their asses off, and thank you to any of you guys that are watching. And I'll see you at Flair Club. I'll buy you a beer. So that's going to be it for this week's show, guys. It is a really, really short one, but please don't miss next week's show. I've got a really good show planned about whether we've lost the personality in Flair bartending competitions. If you think back a few years, think back to the Legends and the Quest for the Best, those kind of competitions that used to be absolutely huge back in the day, and you had so many different rounds with showmanship and exhibition flair, speed flair. Perhaps it's time to inject some of that personality back into bartending. If you have any thoughts on this, let me know this week. I would love to include your thoughts in the podcast next week. And until then, guys, it's a very, very short podcast this week. I say it every week, but it's getting shorter and shorter. This one is extremely short. Next week is going to be a lot more in-depth. But I will see you guys on next week's show. In the meantime, please, please, please be social, give me some feedback, and if you've got any thoughts on this personality and flair thing, I would love to hear them from you. Leave me a message through the website, drop me an email, david@bartenderhq.com, and if you ever have any problems memorising cocktails, jump on my ebook. It's available from the website. It is How to Memorise Cocktails the Easy Way, and it's the system that I use to memorise over 600 cocktails when at TGI Fridays in the Bartender Challenge competition. So, until next time, guys, see you on Facebook, see you on Twitter, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the BartenderHQ.com podcast. Find us on Facebook and Twitter at BartenderHQ.